This is Revolution Radio.
Revolution Radio and this silly little podcast that we call Canadian AF. My name is Craig G, alongside Derek Lewis and Dimitri Alexiou. Today we are joined by a guest. Strap in, folks, because this is going to be a minute. Four-time Juno Award winner, a Gemini Award winner, four-time Much Music Video Award winner, appeared on 7 different soundtracks, has had dozens upon dozens upon dozens of TV and film appearances, 4 certified gold releases, 3 platinum releases, 2 double platinum releases, and a triple platinum release. 15 singles and 7 albums in total, including 2022's 3 Rocks and a Slingshot. We are so honored and privileged to be joined today by Ms. Jully Black. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Black. I've never heard an intro done like that. I'm like, really? Is that about me?
That's about you.
To be honest with you, I could have gone on. Actually, you've done so many wonderful things over this incredible career of yours. So
you didn't even bring up the kink in my hair. You know?
Yeah. Then the award that she won for that.
Right. Wow.
Absolutely. And of course, this little pokey thing that you may have done recently called the 2023 NBA All-Star Game. So we will, of course, I'm sure
what happened
get into that. Yeah, right.
What happened there? I don't.
Right.
I know nothing.
So, Jully, if you don't mind, there's a million things that we want to ask you. We're going to try to do this in the amount of time allotted as possible. We know you're super busy, and again, we appreciate your time. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So we have to go back to get things started. I believe we have to go back to Jane and Finch.
Okay, let's go.
So your mother, Aretha?
No, Wikipedia is wrong.
Like what's okay?
Agatha.
Okay.
Agatha. Yeah.
Beautiful. So how many children are there all total?
I'm the youngest of 9, and there are 6 who are living today.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. Okay. So I'm interested the one thing that I find absolutely incredible is at the very beginning of your career, there were 2 major record labels that came knocking at your door fairly early on. And I don't think I've really heard of this type of thing happen to too many musicians, singers, what have you over the years. It basically started with Warner and then Universal.
Yes.
I was wondering if you'd be able to talk a little bit about that time, because that must have been so unbelievably, like, it must have been a whirlwind for you at that point.
Yeah, I was a teenager. And so Warner Music came knocking, probably, 16 or 17. And Universal came knocking as well. But Universal, if I could give you something that most people don't know. Okay.
Ooh.
So Sony Music, Epic Records came knocking first when I was 14 years old.
Oh my.
14 years old.
Yeah. Her name is Vivian Scott. She was the VP of A&R at the time. And I was discovered here in Toronto at an all ages event. And I got my first development deal, record deal at 14. So I was traveling to New York every weekend. Grade 9, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So at the time that you were 19, can you give us a rough estimate of what year that would have been? Was that mid-90s?
Oh, yeah. No, so I got, so let me think. So I got my first publishing deal, record deal, 1998.
Mm-hmm.
1998. So 77, 87, 97. Yes, I just turned 21.
Wow. Okay. And then how did you end up getting, I'm going to be jumping around here a little bit because I'm a disc jockey. Yeah, exactly. I'm a disc jockey. So I actually was spinning in nightclubs at the time that Baby Blue, Sound Crew,
Money
Cardinal Official, and Sean Paul dropped.
Yes.
That period, if you don't mind me asking, how did you get that gig?
So Cardinal and I have been friends since I was 15 and he was 16. We both went to a band camp called Fresh Arts. And in that camp, it was a part of a program called Jobs Ontario Youth, the JOY program. Shout out to the Bob Ray administration. That's one thing that they did well for the youth. And so we got paid an hourly wage to go make music. And we met. That's where we met, actually. All summer. in High Park. We had facilitators and leaders. There's a lot of mentorship. Baby Blue, Kid Cut was there. He was part of the program. Socrates, part of the program. But we knew them. I was Julianne Gordon. Cardinal was Jason Harrell. Socrates was Amani Welu. Like, we were our birth names. We were just these kids, right? And so when it came time, Choclair got discovered as far as internationally first. He got signed to Virgin. And then he brought us all on to be like singing hooks, and Cardinal and Socrates were producing. So I had my voice in there, basically being like the voice of these hip hop songs. And so then Cardinal got discovered by MCA Records, and he was doing the song, working with Sean Paul as well as Baby Blue. So they needed a voice, and I was always available. Like, Jully was the voice. Like, they knew any hip hop song, Jully's the voice. And so that kind of became my role. Like, I used to say that I was the wife of hip hop. What I mean? If hip hop was the husband and I was the wife, let's go.
That's brilliant.
And if I could just ask something. Okay, so like the first thing I ever heard from you was What It Takes with you and Choclair. That was the first thing. That was the first time I ever heard of you or Choclair, right?
And Andrew's been a fan since then.
Well,
I've been.
I still love that song to this day. It's just trance-inducing. But yeah. So was that when being the white, was Choclair in that same program with you and Cardi?
No, he wasn't. But we would go to his manager Day, Ali Day. We would go to his place to record. He had a little studio in his bedroom, move the mattress out the way. Like, it was crazy, but so good, such a vibe. And because they were all friends, the guys, as far as Choclair and them, they're like, oh, Choclair needed a voice. And they said, call Jully. And so that was my very first video, like my first.
How cold was that shoot?
It was cold. Well, I had on some sort of Nautica. I looked like SpongeBob, but hey, I'm like, what did they put me in? But,
For those of you, for people out there who haven't seen the video, that was basically shot off of Polson Pier, and you can see Lake Ontario and the Toronto skyline in the background, and all this water. Yeah. And
let me tell you, we actually went across to Center Island.
Oh,
we almost missed the last ferry. We were sprinting to get the last ferry,
so you wouldn't get stranded there.
We wouldn't get stranded on the island. Like, it was that kind of thing.
Well, it would have been a longer shoot, but yeah.
We're on a budget, honey.
Yeah, less lighting.
We're still eating ramen back then.
Yeah.
We're still eating ramen now.
So being the self-described wife of hip hop at the time, was that a role that you were comfortable with? Because I eventually saw you at the Horseshoe around 2000 during North by Northwest, and your show was more rootsy and Etta Jamesy,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So it was all strategic, literally strategic. There wasn't I wasn't hearing R&B or soul singers from Canada on the radio. It was all about, Mary J. It was Faith Evans. It was Erykah Badu, etc. Right? Alicia Keys, Lauryn Hill. But there was nobody from Canada. So the only way, like, I had the presence of mind to say, all right, hip hop, there was a scene, college radio, lots of, like, hip hop. We were touring coast to coast based on college radio. And then when Choclair got on radio with Let's Ride, it was like, okay, there's a commercial radio starting to listen to us, right? And so I knew as many hooks I could get on, I knew I'd be discovered. And that's exactly how I got discovered. I got discovered when Cardi was opening up for Shaggy in Portland, Oregon. And I was singing all those songs, basically.
That's
Old Time Killin' and, Powerful and all these different songs. Money Jane. It was good.
Derek.
Awesome time.
Yeah. I just love the fact that since like the last time when I had so usually we're playing songs, and the last time we did I did a whole hip hop set, and I said the first original Cardi, and referring to Cardinal.
Yeah.
And then I like how we've just continued that, and it's come along into this conversation, and I love that we're calling him Cardi, and that it goes across, and it's absolutely hilarious to me.
Are we not supposed to call him Cardi?
No, I think it's great. I've never heard anybody call him Cardi before.
Oh, really?
Never. Ever.
He calls himself Cardi.
I know. Now that I've listened to it, I hear it, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm just, some schmo.
Yeah. When I announce him on Revolution Radio, I always say Cardinal Official.
His
put
full name.
respect on his name.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I'm gonna get to the question. Now I know that you do huge work for BIPOC people and LGBTQ community. Now, what prompted you to do that change at the NBA game? Like, what was it like? I know there was, because I know the work that you do. I know that there's something deep inside, and I know that you've talked about it at length already.
That's okay. It's a new day.
It's a new day. Yeah. Bunch of new faces. What was it? Like, what was the catalyst for that? And like, how long have you been thinking about that?
Right. Thank you for asking. And I will talk about this every day if I have to, because this conversation needs to continue. So thank you.
Absolutely.
For not being bad. Just jumping in when it was, when the block was hot. Like, I'm like, this is a great time to talk about it. I've had enough time to reflect as well. I didn't think about it at length. Like 3 days before I left, I just had an inkling, an intuition. I felt like I needed to do this in a way that aligns with my core values, especially over the last 5 years since my mom transitioned. It's like everything has to be meaningful. What's the meaningful mission? You know, how could I have impact more than influence? And so, you know what I'm saying? Like this whole influencer space, it's really it's really tough to look at times.
I completely agree.
You're right.
Yeah, totally.
So, with what's happened over the years in us all learning about Indigenous lives, Indigenous perspectives, stories, etc., I was like, okay, I hadn't sung the anthem literally in years. Like when they asked me to do the anthem in Parliament Hill, I was co-hosting for Canada Day some years ago. I declined, and I declined God Bless the Queen. I said, listen, you have other singers. If they want to do it, fine. I will host. I'll do my Jully thing. You want the energy, and I'll sing my own songs. But now here comes the biggest stage for the Canadian anthem on the planet. This is the largest stage globally, because the Super Bowl doesn't have our anthem. And so I'm like, okay. And it kind of reminded me, even Rihanna turned down the Super Bowl performance with what's going on with Kaepernick and all those.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, when it was in Atlanta. Yeah.
Right. So then here comes an opportunity again. How do you make it meaningful? What message do you want to send? So, but for me, it's like, all right, I spoke to Indigenous peoples that I know well, close. And I had already made the decision up, but I said, I don't want this to look like some sort of publicity stunt. When I shared with them, tears, goosebumps. Even now I got goosebumps. Like because the message from them was, you would do that. It didn't feel sacrificial to me. Mm-mm. It didn't feel sacrificial at all. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm just doing a vocal land acknowledgement. We do land acknowledgements every day. All these meetings, events, we are on the Mississaugas of the credit on Indigenous lands. I'm like, I thought I was putting kale in the smoothie. Like, I'm like, we got some mango, strawberry, kale, they won't taste it. I really didn't think people would notice as much as they did. Mm-hmm. And I have no regrets. I'm glad I did. And it's changed my life. It's changed my life forever. So, there's a story.
It really has.
Yeah, it really, and you've gotten both amazing feedback from it and venomous feedback from it. Chuck D was my favorite. You know, like it was my girl at Jully Black just kicked the most soulful "Oh Canada" I ever heard, and I'm just thinking, Chuck D, that's gotta feel good.
And it was amazing. It really was. Your performance was just sensational. It was so good.
Yeah, there was one phrase in it, and you just see Pascal Siakam's head just go down in like reverence to what you're doing, you know, like, so just, yeah. But
and it was spiritual. It was, I thank everyone for supporting me through it. And what was funny to me, what gave me a sense of, I guess, relief and calm is when the guy jacked up my intro. And when the announcer jacked up the intro, if you watch the video, I laugh. I'm walking up because the only thing that was on my mind wasn't the word, was I have on 5-inch heels. This is live. And I want this to be my Whitney Houston moment. Like I've never heard the Canadian anthem done in a way that people could be like, that's a soulful rendition. I still kept the melody. I might have helped a few notes. I didn't, because there's been times, I love some of my friends in this business, but they've chopped the anthem up and turned into a whole other jambalaya that I couldn't even sing along. So I'm like,
right.
So
you didn't crack either. You didn't crack as well. There's some, you know what I mean? Because it's a large area, right? And you're singing in that, and that's the one that, okay, so the phrase, I love that. But the other part is like, you didn't, like, you were solid across the whole time. And that's like, and you don't hear that in like arenas and stadiums and stuff like that. Like, if I've heard people sing at like Skydome, and you're just like, this sounds weird. Right, but the whole recording of you is like, it's so smooth across the whole thing, and I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
For me, it's like you were meant to.
I did a quick session. Sorry to cut you with my
nope, not
vocal,
at all.
she trained me for Carolina Change, and then I didn't think I needed her for the anthem, and then she messaged me. She's like, "Do you want to do a session?" I'm like, "Actually, yeah." We jumped on, and I'm actually gonna post that clip soon online, because like, she just said, "This is the people's anthem, and make sure you don't make it about you." And she just gave me words outside of the technique that I'm shivering again. Okay, you can see I've got goosebumps. And she said, "Bring joy to the anthem. The people are losing hope. Bring hope."
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's advice. Wow.
Yeah, no, wonderful advice. I can actually tell you from my background, both of my grandfathers fought in the war. Neither of them would have had an issue with what you did with the anthem. I can assure you of that. I also happen to be indigenous. I have some indigenous background, Ojibwe Métis. Okay. So I entirely agree, and thank you for doing what you did, because things need to change. You know what I mean? And it's people like you that bring that change and help to affect things. That's what I actually wanted to ask you your opinion on. You touched on it briefly, and I think it's a really, really good point. Influencer versus real action. There's a million and one, TikTok influencers.
Right.
But real action for me is something that you did. Real action, making change. Knowing that you've done something like that, I don't think it would be kind of simple for me to ask you, how does it make you feel? But I think, it is one of these things that moving forward, it's going to be one of those things that is going to have an impact for the rest of the anthem's life, essentially, because now people are going to be saying, maybe Ms. Jully has a point. Maybe we should say, on instead of our, So knowing that moving forward, I think, would you give any advice to people to help make change, as opposed to just saying, this is what I believe, and kind of just leaving it there, kind of floating in air, and then, but actually someone like you coming along and saying, no, this is how you make change.
Oh, wow. Thank you. You can tell, like, this is it's so personal. It's become something that's a barometer for me now, and everything that I do. Is it meaningful? How is this going to impact others? And I just got to the point, especially being in this business, the music business, for so long, where it can be very narcissistic. Artists, I'm an artist, a lot of people want to like tend to our needs. What do you need? What can we do for you? What can we do for you? But I was raised to serve. And I think sometimes, if I had to be totally honest, sometimes I'm like, maybe that's why I didn't, I'm not as far as others, whatever that means, There are those who are really selfish, and they'll just go for theirs and not really concern themselves with everybody else. And I wasn't raised that way. And so I recognize now that when my mom used to say the race is not for the swift, but for those who endure, I get it. I get the endurance side of things.
Yeah.
And being able to have sympathy for others and empathy, because I understand what it's like to be disenfranchised and to be, be a minority. But also I said this, and I'm so happy that there's like, 3 of you that don't look like me and your men on this call. Because I said this recently in a show, and I'm going to say it here, and it just went over so well. Black people we tend to say we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And if you're white, identify as white, whatever, I want you to think about saying, consider this, you can be your ancestors' biggest nightmare and changing the past, by making a different decision, choosing another thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just choose differently. We prejudge every single day. I don't care. I think too many of us don't admit that we're walking around with some traumas, and those who may have been racialized on all all sides of the coin. You know what I mean? I could speak to the Black community and say, tell me a time you haven't felt, okay, the white person's done me wrong. Like that's racializing a community, right? So I think it's important for us to realize, especially me living as a Black woman, to help the white community, especially say, hey, I want you to now lift the guilt. Because if you're walking with your head down on eggshells, afraid to say something, silence is violence. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
We have to have the tough conversations. And then we also need to celebrate together. We need to celebrate. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
Right? And so in my prayers and my meditation, I talk to God about, okay, I want my star to be as bright as possible. It's not for me. It's because when you have big influence, big impact, part of me, you can make big change. You make bigger change. And on the flip side, if you're an asshole and then you get, you come up into success, you're going to be a bigger asshole.
Yep.
So I know my heart, and I know that I'm doing the work to live love, like not look for it out there, like to be it, so that people feel the energy and want to subscribe and tune into this frequency. It's like a radio dial. Imagine walking through life. We need to turn the dial, right? Take our time to remember back in the day where we had to like move the little thing to try and get it. It wasn't digital yet. We're like rolling.
Yeah.
Yep.
With the little red pin that went across the. Yeah.
Imagine that though.
Yep.
Right? So we need to slow it down to have that red pin hit that mark.
This is the most impactful conversation we've ever had.
Honestly,
we're sitting like you're saying a lot of stuff, and honestly, I can tell you for a fact that the three of us are just sitting here, just sitting with it. We're not just letting it go by. We're sitting with it. We're listening. We hear you. It hits. We got you.
But everything to me.
Like I'm sitting here going, what do we say to this?
Jully, like Derek really has a point, and I have to say to you, like we've put this podcast together probably just, I guess, Dimitri, just over a year ago, I guess, when we had started, something like that.
Yeah.
I think we've done about 45 episodes, and we do one every week. The one thing that I've been saying for the longest time that I'm begging to try to get, and it's just wonderful to hear you say to us, hey, listen, you guys are starting to, the types of things that you guys are doing and what you are doing, the fact that you're listening and the fact that we're having these conversations is amazing. To hear you say that to us, like three white boys on a podcast, you know what I mean? Like, because that's one of the things that I've been saying to both Derek and Dimitri. They can attest. It's like, I really want a BIPOC woman on this program. Like I really do. You know what I mean? So
we need some outside information.
But that's the thing. You know what I mean? Like I really appreciate you saying the things that you've said to us today, because I can assure you that as three white boys sitting here, that means the world to us. I grew up in Scarborough, so I was very fortunate. I grew up at Birch Mountain Finch. I was very fortunate to. I was very fortunate to live. I mean, I had a Black family across the road. I had a Filipino family beside me on the one side and a Chinese family on the other side. Right. So I grew up with.
Let me jump in, Craig, quickly, because I'm actually on a mission to, I don't know if they'll do it legally, but to eradicate this term BIPOC. BIPOC came around in like 2020, Black Lives Matter, and I don't know who created it, but in my heart, I believe it was a committee of white people who weren't comfortable saying Black people, Indigenous people.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I totally
Latin. Yeah. Like we need to identify each community by their name. Hey, to say I want a Black woman, a Black man on my podcast. I want a South Asian. I want somebody from the Middle East. We need to say it. out loud, because if lumping us together, that jambalaya, I'm on, what if I just like shrimp and I don't want the sausage? They've turned us into I've never said that in my life. I'm going to use that in another keynote.
So well done.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Right? Wow. Yeah.
They've turned us into a jambalaya.
Yeah. Because there are tons of people that don't like sausage.
Right?
I want everything in the jambalaya, actually.
Right. I completely, honestly, I'm not going to comment too much being a white guy, but I completely agree with you. I really feel it was a committee of white people basically sitting at a table going, okay, so how do we not feel uncomfortable talking about
right?
Yeah. You know what I mean?
But now we're stuck with that language because we're like, as Jully said, we're walking around eggshells. We got our heads down. We're not saying things. We're not doing things. We're not stepping forward. We're not doing that. We're just following what everybody else is doing and hoping nobody goes, hey, what are you saying?
Right.
You said a thing.
And of course, Jully, the whole thing too that we're worried about as well is being canceled, right? Like we would never ever want to be in a position where, like, in our hearts, I love everybody. I really don't give a shit who you are. It's really, for me, it's you are who you are, and that's all that there is to it. And walking around.
I want to ask you a question.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that you have Indigenous in your bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel fear sharing that pre-Indigenous stories becoming like a headline? Did you, growing up, did you share that you have Indigenous in your blood?
No, I appreciate you asking me that question. To be honest with you, Jully, I didn't find out until I was about 30. I'm 50 now, and just turned 50, and I found out, I was probably about, I guess it was about 33 when I found out. I felt an immense sense of pride because I found out that my great-great-great-grandfather got along very, very well with Indigenous people, with the Ojibwe tribe, because he was able to speak not only English but French, and he could also speak their language as well. So he was a wonderful communicator. He could basically communicate between French and the Ojibwe. So I was very proud of that. You know what I mean? To talk about it, I don't really... Unfortunately, I think I was never in too many situations where I was able to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Right, where you were able to. That makes sense. Yeah. That's fair. Thank you for sharing that. Because you don't just walk around being like I have Asian in my blood and I have South Asian in my blood, but I'll just walk around and be like, yeah, my great grandmother's Chinese Jamaican. This person doesn't really come up. So I relate to that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Dimitri, it's been a while since you've asked a question, my friend.
Soaking it in.
So back in the day, long time ago, like you did a track with Too Rude, and some other people who worked with Too Rude are Mystic and Miranda. They're known as Mystic and Miranda today, but LaToya Miranda.
Yeah.
And anyway, so like months ago, I reached out to them to possibly get an interview, and they said that since Celine Dion, the Canadian music industry has not really been supportive of homegrown talent, regardless of race. But the U.S. has 10 times our population, so it could all be about market size. We were indie artists in 99, and we're still indie now. And we happy with our art. So do you think that now just the Canadian music scene, do you see that? Have you felt the same way at times, like the same sort of frustration?
Yeah. I just got snubbed for my last album. I got big time snubbed. You know what I mean? Like and the issue is it's the same people working there at the various companies. So Canada doesn't fire anybody. They just move people around. The president of this label is now the president of Keras. The president of Bell Media is now the president of,
so true.
Like, they just move people around. It's just a move around.
Yeah.
So, and if you're not a part of the political landscape, you're not managed by this guy, you're not with Feldman because they're the biggest agency, but then it's all them guys running the things. You really have to have a solid belief system. Like truly ask yourself, why am I making this music? Why am I in this business? And if it's anything about being super famous and known in Canada or whatever, then you might as well just go ahead and put your resume in Costco because it's not the thing. I came up in a time, this is full circle. The circle, like having these guys around me as my brothers, having that they were my tugboats. Like, it's a different time now where there's the reach. You can reach your fans easier, TikTok, Instagram, etc. But I would bet that most artists, if not all, but the majority of the true artists want to make a true connection, in person. Like, I know they're my fans. They're coming to my shows. They're buying my merch, etc. Right? And so now there's all these TikTok famous people that don't know how to perform, don't know how to do an interview, don't really care. And it's out of balance. It's like we're walking around hopping on one foot. This is why I'm happy what's happened with my life over the past month with this decision that I made. It confirmed what my mom used to say. Everything in life that's happening, it's based on decisions that you've made. It's a decision to not leave, decision to stay, a decision to be complacent, a decision to be happy. Everything's rooted in your decisions. Everything. Right? And so what Mystic and Miranda is saying, I understand for sure. But if you decide you want to stay in that lane and label yourself that, then that's where you're going to stay. Yeah. I love film. I love TV. I love acting. I realized that my voice, I learned about my voice as a singer, but there's many sides to my voice. Mm-hmm. And I think if most artists would realize, sit down and be like, okay, look at LL Cool J, look at Queen Latifah, look at all these different, look at Ice-T.
Yeah.
Hello, Law and Order.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many? 20 years so far? Long?
No, probably longer. Seriously. Like, so I think there's a level of we have to be mindful of becoming complacent when we have the opportunity to define and redefine who we really are in this space.
Absolutely. So. Yeah.
I don't think we've hit our time here. And, honestly, I could talk to you for another 2 or 3 hours.
As usual.
But I think that usual, yeah. Dimitri?
I just need to tell you, like, I've always loved your ferocity from like the very first time I saw that What It Takes video and everything, and how you've developed throughout the years and everything. You are the essence of fierce to me. Yeah.
Woo! I love that. I'm gonna put that on. That's my mantra for today.
So yeah, I'm just such a huge fan. So yeah, just love you.
We can't thank you enough for spending the time with us today. Not only a great conversation, education as well too, I think is important. You know what I mean, for everybody. I really think that this has been an eye-opening experience for me, and my ears are always constantly open. So we greatly appreciate your time, Ms. Jully Black. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, and please chop this up. I want to put it on socials. Get the nuggets. Get those awesome nuggets, and let's put them up. Let's put it out. You know what I mean?
Do it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to take a picture. I love taking a picture.
That's Craig's department.
I'll do that. No problem. I promise.
Okay, come on. I need a picture. Everyone, give me something. Please.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Boom. Got it.